It is great to welcome to the show for the first time Congressman Maxwell Frost, representing the 10th District in Florida, the first Gen Z member of Congress, and a number of other accolades we were chatting about. We both play drums and many other extracurriculars. It's really good to have you. You know, a lot of people in my audience have been wanting to hear from you, so I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
So, I mean, listen, I guess to start somewhere, we are in the middle of a government shutdown that the MAGA wing of the Republican Party, and really the Republican Party in general, is trying to blame on Democrats. We have a couple of important things happening in 2025 from the standpoint of voting, including this California redistricting initiative from Governor Newsom and some off year elections. We're kind of pointing towards 2026, where
Yep.
I believe it's a potentially major inflection point. I think the reason my audience wanted to hear from you to a degree was both generationally and ideologically, you represent change in a lot of different ways. And many in my audience, we've heard from everybody. We've heard from senators, congresspeople, governors. My audience is a little bit sort of like, do we have the right people in charge in the Democratic Party to push us forward here? So hearing from you, what's your sense right now of the Democratic Party's leadership, messaging, and vision going into 26?
Well, I think, and something I've been talking a lot about is the fact that we need an affirmative agenda, right? It's not enough just to run against something. And this is something that I believed in far before I became an elected official, right? As an organizer, this is something that you focus on, not giving people something to vote against, but something to vote for. And
Yep.
the fact of the matter is, we're at a point in time in our country where people are very desperate. Wealth inequality is at its worst, which means that for working people are being siphoned out of the middle class and being put into what I call the working poor more and more and more. And what this is doing is it's creating a desperation in our people where they will suspend their values and beliefs on a lot of different issues because the thing right in front of them, taking care of their family, being able to have healthcare and housing and food and all these things is at risk. And this is part of the reason why we saw so many people who typically might vote for a Democrat, or typically, if you were to ask them, are you conservative? They'd say no. That's why a lot of them ended up voting for Trump or not voting at all.
Hmm.
And it's something that we see, we were talking about before about South America. I was in El Salvador earlier this year on the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case. I
Yeah.
got to speak with a lot of people from civil society about this is a country where what did that president win by 80 or 90%? I mean, something ridiculous. But 80 or 90% of the country doesn't agree with him on all the issues or wouldn't even align with him. But it's that it got so bad in terms of safety that people suspended their beliefs on a lot of other things to handle the one situation. That's how people like Trump get elected. Fascists and authoritarians don't come to power when everyone's doing good, when everybody has healthcare, when everyone has enough resources for the family. It happens in times of desperation. And what we have to do as a party is we have to understand that not in terms of just how we talk about the issues. It's not just about identifying the right issues, but it's about providing big, bold, transformational solutions that people see themselves represented in. Like, oh, that thing would change my life, would like make it way easier for me to live in this country. And that's what I think we really need to get with the program on. No one's interested in like this one bill that would fix some things for some people around the edges
Yeah.
if you're within this income bracket and you'll get it in 4 to 8 years. Like that, it doesn't work. It's not a winner politically, and it's honestly not good policy, especially in a political system like ours, where in 4 years the next person can undo the whole thing, and you never see that policy come to fruition. And it's like this thing that happens over and over again. And I guess what I'm talking about broadly is the fact that the kind of neoliberal policies, I think we're going to have to put that aside and take a step back and look at big, bold transformational change. And I think in one way, Trump is really showing us the potholes in this system that we have. And the question is whether or not we, when we're back in power and even now, do we fill them? And that's like, I think that's the biggest test for our party right now. What do we run on it, we win on it, and then most importantly, do it? Because you got a lot of people who say the Democrats only have a communication problem. I, I think that's part of it, but that would mean, well, we do everything right, but not enough people know about it. I think there's a doing problem as well in terms of what we run on and what we do. So there's a few things there, but I'm actually pretty optimistic in this moment. I think for the
You are.
first time in my lifetime, there is no Democratic establishment right now.
Hmm.
Now, some people might disagree with me when they hear that, but an establishment is when all the top power brokers are doing the same thing. There's so much feud and all this stuff from the last election that there is no establishment. It is up for grabs. So I think we hear from the base and the people that they want that kind of change. And that's why I'm a little optimistic, even in this dark time, that this party can change and do what it needs to do.
Yeah. And for me right now, especially it being 2025, this is not about, it's obviously not about pretending everything's fine and working super well in the party, but it's also not about
Yeah.
just like criticizing everybody and burning the whole thing down. Like, I'm not an accelerationist. I believe in fixing things where opportunities present themselves. On the
Yeah.
issue of the messaging, I want to dive into that a little bit with you. You know, I've said a lot of positive things about the former Vice President Harris. When I met her, she was formidable, extraordinarily knowledgeable in everything from AI to trade. Like, I was impressed with her. And
Yeah.
also, I wasn't super impressed with the campaign. And if I think about like the economic ideas, I remember this thing that kept coming up about a tax deduction or credit towards expenses for starting a new business. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm like explaining it in an even inarticulate way. I can't really sum up what the economic vision was. And I think that was reflected in the voting. As Bernie Sanders said, the average person who's not steeped in this stuff every day didn't have a visceral feeling that it was definitely better for the average working person to have a President Harris than a President Trump. I think, if I'm hearing you correctly, that you're saying part of it was the messaging, but part of it was maybe also the ideas or lack thereof.
It's the ideas, and it's also what we do when we have power. Like, of course, under 4 years of Joe Biden, there was a lot of really good bills passed.
Mm-hmm.
But part of the problem is the most transformational parts of those pieces of legislation. I traveled the country for Kamala Harris, right? I would go speak with people, and they would say, "I don't feel it," and it's a couple things. The biggest thing is we have such wealth and equality in this country. The fact that so many little people have so much and so many people have nothing,
Yeah.
that the economy is rigged like this. And the thing is that when the economy is rigged like this, even when you pass bills that grow the economy, which on paper is good, it grows the way it's rigged. And so when it grows like that, people at the bottom, which is the majority of it's all working people, they don't feel that as much. And that's part of the issue that we have, and part of the reason why we need to take a step back and look at the system itself and how we change that for people, so that way we all feel it. And I think, and I agree with you, it's the policy, it's the way we talk about it, and then it's what we do when we're in power. And part of the thing that I've been talking to a lot of folks about is how do we write legislation in Congress to set more aggressive timelines. This is something FDR was obsessed with throughout the New Deal, right? Is, for every two things or whatever that would take 4 years, like we need something people will feel in a couple months to show people that government can work for them. We don't have that kind of thinking anymore in government. The timelines are so vast, they spill into other presidencies when you don't know what the political situation is going to be. And the fact of the matter is people are suffering now. So it's easier, and some people may say, well, look at Trump, he's working fast. True. It's easier for him to work fast because right-wing agendas are about tearing things down. It's easier to tear down things than give everybody healthcare. But that's why we have to work even harder, and that's why the conversations and the work starts now. Democrats like to wait till we're in power to talk about what we do with the power. That's the problem. The presidency is only 100 days to really get the big stuff done. We have to figure it out now.
Right.
So when we're there, we have the plan. And that's what Project 2025, part of the reason why it's so dangerous for our country and dangerous for us, isn't even just what's in it, but how quickly you can get through it. And that's the thing we need to be doing now. And a lot of us are doing it. And my hope is as we, nominate someone in the future, that is something that's front of mind for them. You don't just, I'd like to see some candidates not just run on what they're going to do policy wise, but how they're going to do it. Like, explain to us what the order of operations is here, because we're not going to have all the time in the world. And I just think people are really desperate right now.
One of the things that I think is interesting in that context of you being a Gen Z member of the House is I'm assuming you are, you're probably more connected to the political stories that prevail maybe in new and independent media, social media, et cetera. And one of the things I found really interesting about not so much the 2016 election primary, but certainly the 2020 primary, is that if you looked at Twitter and Reddit, you had one perception of where the Democratic Party and the average voter was. If you went to Michigan outside of union factories, and spoke to Democrats, you had a very different impression of where the so-called average Democrat was. I'm curious your thoughts now as we stand towards the end of 2025. There's this debate over the real Democratic Party is way to the left of the average Democratic elected official, or actually it's the wokeness and the socialism that's the problem and it needs to move more in the other direction. It's a very old question, but you're sort of in an interesting position to answer it in that you're between the
Yeah.
official and what's happening in the social media. What's your honest, deep sense of where the bulk of the party is and what it wants right now?
I actually think for so long, these have been, like you said, two different things. But for the first time since I've been, elected official, I would say that these things have converged. So
Really?
a lot of what I see online and a lot of what people are asking for, not everything, I'm not gonna say everything, is a lot of what I'm hearing when I'm knocking doors at home, is a lot of
Huh.
what people stop me on the street and say, you know, thank you for your work on the internment camp in the Everglades, Alligator Alcatraz. We
Yep.
need Democrats to fight. We need like bold solutions. I'm hearing this. I'll give you an example. I spoke at the Stop the Oligarchy rally in Los Angeles, and I ran into some people that I struck up a conversation with who were talking about the fact that they hated Bernie in 2016. Like they're very loyal Democrats. They were more on the Hillary side, and they hated him. They thought, he was the reason Trump, won. And I was like, well, why are you here? You're at his rally. Um, and they said, well, I think Democrats need to fight more, and the people I've been seeing fight are the progressives, and I think I get it now.
Huh.
And so I'm seeing a little bit of a convergence there, which is part of the reason I'm a bit optimistic with the way the party can go, because the party is fractured. We are figuring things out. There is no establishment. And the question is, where does the base push us? And do we actually go in that direction? I've been questioning a lot the kind of academic ideological scale that we all talk about. I don't think the average voter goes into the voting booth and goes, well, where on the ideological scale is this candidate? Like, I don't think
Right.
people give a damn about that. I think people are, want to vote for the people they know, they trust, that are giving them bold solutions that inspire them. And it's part of the reason why people are all over the place. I mean, you'll talk with a swing Trump voter and ask them, who's your other favorite politician? And they'll say Bernie Sanders or something like that. And to people like us, it might be confusing, but it really isn't, because as things get worse in this country, people are just looking for, again, transformation. I think that's what the average voter wants, transformation. And they might, like, in their heart, they might be more of a person to the left or maybe a little to the right. But the fact of the matter is that when one party represents defending an institution and one party is representing changing it up, even though it's like changing it up so it can work better for billionaires, it's still like change. The change is going to win. I think 9 out of 10 times, especially in a country where over 60% of our people live paycheck to paycheck. Things are bad. Things aren't good. And so, I mean, I do see a convergence between kind of the online speak and when I run into just everyday people on the streets. And I've been spending a lot more time in on Florida lakes, like lake culture, which is a pretty MAGA heavy place.
Yeah.
And I speak with a lot of people out there who complete like decked out in MAGA stuff. And I'm telling you, I even hear it from these folks too. They'll say, I disagree with you on everything. And then I start talking about some progressive solutions I believe in. And then they'll be, yeah, well, I agree with you on that. Yeah, that would help me a lot, you know? So I think that, I don't know. I feel like I just feel optimistic about that sort of thing. And I think the base is yelling for change in the party. And I think we're seeing it. I think we're going to see it in 2026. We've seen a lot of these more populist progressive candidates come out that are really looking to build a broad coalition around their ideas. And I think that's going to be the way forward here.
Last thing I'll ask you about, and I know you've got to run, in that environment where you see this convergence, are Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries the best people to lead the party in that context of convergence?
I'll say this battle that we're in right now, when was it? March? I was very, like everybody else, very, very disappointed with the fact that like House Democrats stood strong, and then the Senate, they just completely let down, not just us in the Beltway DC political sense, but the entire nation. And we know what happened afterwards. The entire base told them Senate leadership and those senators who I think really made it the wrong decision, they got held from our base. And I think that
Yeah.
was appropriate and very important. And it just goes to show that at times when you disagree, we can have an impact because now we're in lockstep on holding strong right now. And I think this is really a test, especially on the Senate side, because the House is really standing strong on this, on if we're able to really stand 10 toes down here. And I I feel a lot more confident now than last time. Obviously, we're in the middle of this shutdown that Republicans put us in. They run the House, the Senate, and the White House.
Yeah.
But this is a very moral fight that most people are with us on. Like we're doing this for healthcare. So I think time will tell on the Senate side where things go. I've been a little less optimistic with what's going on over there, and I think the Senate is ripe for a lot of change. On the House side, I think we're doing good work right now, especially in this shutdown. And I want to see more. I'm always bringing this up. I want to see more people on the road, more people bringing the message out there, because the fact of the matter is, you can do stunts and stuff up in DC, and that's important. But Donald Trump has the biggest megaphone here. But the time where you can break through is when you leave the DC bubble and you actually go to the people. It's harder for Donald Trump to BS that very localized message, and that's part of the reason I went on the road with Chris Murphy. And I think you're seeing breakout folks in the Senate like Chris Murphy and folks like that starting to speak out a lot more. So I know it's a little bit of a non-answer, but just some.
Well, listen, we spoke to Senator Murphy last week, and he's doing really good work. So I guess if I don't want to put words in your mouth, but interpreting and reading between the lines of what you're saying, you are less negative about the leadership now than you were in March, and you're taking a let's see what happens approach. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'd say more on the Senate side, but yeah,
All
exactly.
Right.
I mean, this whole year has been a test, and March did not go well. But I think right now, we need people to stay strong, and I encourage folks to reach out to your members of Congress, even your Democratic members of Congress, your Democratic senators, and then tell them thank you for holding strong on this and continue to. We need you to, because this is healthcare for 25 million people. It's not nothing. And this is an authoritarian president. When you don't have all the power you want, use all the power you got. And that's the moment that we're in right now.
All right. We've been speaking with Congressman Maxwell Frost, who represents the 10th District in Florida. Really appreciate your time, and hopefully we'll get reopened soon and back to work.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.